What's up? This is Robert from Existence First, and we're going to start this week's lecture with the standard intro. Welcome to Spiritual Self-Defense Podcast, protection for your mind, your emotions, and your life. Just like when you go out in the real world and need to defend against attackers, so too you must defend the very integrity of your living, which will be attacked from all sides by laziness, self-doubt, lack of confidence, sloppy thinking, and negative energy from others. So this is the place we come to strengthen. This podcast is brought to you by my company, Existence First, which is a community of deep thinkers dedicated to self-help and personal growth, people who value knowledge that works over knowledge that doesn't work. Okay, let's get started. So the topic this week is mind break. And I was thinking about this because we've got this word called heartbreak, and you say your heart's broken, but we really don't talk about having your mind broken or suffering from mind break, right? We might say mental breakdown. That's probably the closest that we get to, but it's not the same sort of meaning that I'm thinking of. Now, mental breakdown is kind of like a complete breakdown, right? But there's many times throughout the day where your mind actually breaks a little bit. And that's where I think we need to focus our attention. So this week, I had to move, right? So because my roommate is moving out, so now I'm going to move closer to work. And at first it was like agitating because it takes a lot of time to go search for places. And so the search began with a lot of negativity on my part, which I own, but it was negative nonetheless. Then as soon as I started to realize that my mind was thinking that way, I had to really do a U-turn, so to speak. And I had to turn around and go in a different direction. And I had to start paying attention to the things that were positive about the experience. So, for instance, prices are going down in the Bay Area, so that's one thing, right? I'm going to be closer to work, which is another thing. So there's a lot of positives in this, right? I'm also learning a lot. And it's this ability to pivot very quickly, which is one of the lessons that I've been learning through studying successful entrepreneurs and business people, is that they all understand the importance of being adaptive or adaptable, however you want to say it, of adapting to the current situation, because situations change all the time. And it's just people who, here's the point to make. Okay, changes happen, and the last 6 months is probably the best example of that. Sudden changes that people did not anticipate, and probably changes that people haven't seen in 10 plus years, if not, if we're talking about the Corona chaos, then we're talking 100 years, right? Because the Spanish flu was 100 years ago. So, but the last recession, the last economic recession was only 10 years ago. So that's why I'm saying 10 or 100. But these changes, a person can appear to be strong, but they might appear to be strong only because they have set their life up to be so predictable that they're not facing challenges, right? That they're not, their emotions are fairly steady, but it's because either they're in a job that they've been working for the last 20 years, so there's no new challenges, or they haven't moved in a long time, and so their life is very predictable. Like, they walk home and they know exactly where everything is, right? There's no craziness. but that kind of disguises the strength of that person. So weak people can hide behind easy lives. That's the, I guess that's the key statement. And again, to shout out Tai Lopez, I just finished his program 67 Steps, which is, I'm way behind. That program came out years ago, but I finally got around to doing it, and I'm very pleased with it. And one of the things that he mentions in the lectures is how he's talking to these lawyers, right? And he says, how's business? And the lawyers go, not good, not getting paid. And then Tai Lopez says, why not? What's going on with your clients? And the lawyers say that my clients are all dead. They committed suicide. And then Tai Lopez is like, well, how did that happen? And the lawyers said, well, they were making millions of dollars in the real estate boom, and then when the market crashed, they were all $500,000 in debt, $1 million in debt, and they killed themselves. Now, that sounds a little tragic, but Tai Lopez made the point that Donald Trump at one point was $9 billion, billion with a B, not million, like those guys that killed themselves, $9 billion in debt. And he worked through it, and because of his toughness factor, he was able to come out of that, right? And so emotional toughness needs to be recognized as a trait. And so emotional toughness would be the opposite of emotional fragility, being fragile, easy to break. So you don't want a mind that's easy to break. A mind that's easy to break would be the slightest thing starts going wrong, and the person freaks out and says, "Oh, this is going to be horrible," or "I can't handle this," or "I can't handle the stress," "I can't handle the pressure," and that person needs to get out of there, because they, if they're not willing to strengthen up and toughen up, then that's not the right time for them. Now, there's two types of people: people that don't care to improve themselves, and the people that do care to improve themselves. And in the latter group, people that do care to improve themselves, they will either face challenges that are within their range, like slightly out of their comfort zone, which is, that would be an appropriate place to be in. And then there's stretches that are way outside their comfort zone, and it might be counterproductive to throw them into that situation. However, to put them in a situation where they have to grow a little bit, that might be productive. All right, now let's see what the notes I wrote on this board are. This does not even have to do with this lecture, but I can kind of tie it in. Oh, here's another example of this mind break thing. I was talking with someone this week, and she was telling me that, who is it? Like a family member of hers was in a very long relationship, like a 20-year relationship or something. And that after the relationship ended recently, this family member just cannot get their mind straight. Like they're not working, they're unemployed. I think maybe because of the coronavirus, but not working, and they're just in this mental rut. Now, so there's two factors against them right then. Is number one, they're not working, and then number two, the relationship ended, right? However, that reveals, like I said, you can go years and years appearing to be a strong person because you haven't faced challenges that were tough enough yet. So that is the huge risk factor to not challenging yourself. And I love self-help. I love improving, and I love, strengthening myself. You'll see that become like way more useful when you do have to encounter it, right? It's almost like you have to prepare for like battle, and you may not fight or face battle every day, but you prepare and you train for it, right? Like Michael Jordan was famous for saying that, or he was, one of the things he said was that his games were so easy because his practices were so hard. Like he trained super hard in practice, like extra hard, so that the games were like a piece of cake. And that's why he walked over everybody, right? So that gets to the same idea. All right, these other points, I think I'm just going to save that for a YouTube video because the topic is different. I like the topic that we covered today, which is it's this mental strength factor, you know what I mean? And to be strong, to develop strength, you have to train, right? That's why they call it strength training when you go to the gym. And it's the resistance. I know this metaphor is overused all the time, but it's the resistance in the weight room, in the gym. It's the resistance that builds the muscles. It's the tear down, the destruction of the muscles that then forces them to rebuild. So one way to look at your life is every couple days rebuild. Every couple days be like, all right, this thing got destroyed, so it's time to start fresh. It's time to rebuild, and rebuild stronger than it was the first time, because the first time it got knocked down. So now I have to go back to the drawing board, draft a stronger version, and build that stronger version until a stronger outside force then takes down that one. Then you just rinse and repeat. You do the same thing, and you rebuild that that fortress once again, right? So it becomes, and I wouldn't say it's Sisyphean in a way, because even though it sounds like someone rolling a boulder up the hill over and over, it's not the same, because you rebuild, you're rebuilding, and it doesn't get torn down, and then you rebuild it back to the same point. Sisyphus rolled the boulder back up to the same point, and then it came down up to the same point, right? This time you go up the hill, then you go down a little bit, right? Then you go up. Like there's a John Steinbeck quote where it says, man takes 2 steps forward, then 1 step back, right? Because he has muscles aching to create, to build, minds aching to create beyond the most simple human need. That is humankind. That's what John Steinbeck said. So that's enough for now. In the meantime, think deeply and put your existence first.